Silver had a wild day today as Mr. Slammy made himself known earlier in the trading session. But nonetheless, the ride that we saw is almost becoming commonplace. But what happened today is a little different than what we're used to seeing, especially on a Friday. I'll get into it in this video as we explore. Silver's price plunged below $49 an ounce earlier in the trading session, and then we had a pretty big turnaround. In fact, it's fighting for $50 silver yet again. Now, before I get in too deep with what's going on with the prices of silver today, I want to show you a piece later in the video that I got from my local bank. Yeah, I was shocked and surprised to see it. A hint is that it's golden. I'll get into that in a moment. But first, let's get in behind what's going on with the markets here. Everything is in the red today, with rhodium taking the biggest plunge. Now, it is pretty amazing to see almost 2.5% drop in rhodium's price, down $195 to $8,180. But the next big drop is silver. Silver got hit the hardest today. It got down below $49. $48.57 earlier in the trading session. It got clobbered hard. But right now, there is hope we can maintain what I had hoped for at the beginning of the week, and that is every single day in the week we see silver close above $50 an ounce. Well, right now, moments before the markets close, it is sitting right at $50 an ounce. It is down 70 cents today, 1.4%. But the bid price is below $50. It's trying its best to hit there. It may close below that when it comes to that time. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Gold is down $12, a 0.29% drop to $4,066. It never got below $4,000 an ounce. Silver got hit harder today, but a turnaround certainly did take place here. Now, I'll tell you why here in a moment, but channel sponsor Summit Metals is a great company. You should check them out by clicking on the link in the description below to experience the great customer service and some products that they have with some very competitive prices. So check them out and experience that service for yourself and elevate your wealth with Summit Metals. What a day it was. The gold market trading not far from session highs ahead of the weekend after the latest data showed consumer sentiment in the U.S. improving, with inflation expectations actually ticking a little bit lower. That's good news. The University of Michigan announced on Friday that the final reading of its consumer sentiment survey for November was 51. The data was better than expectations as consumer forecast economists called for a reading of 50.5 after a preliminary reading of 50.3, but it was still below October's final reading of 53.6. After the shutdown, sentiment slightly shifted from its mid-month reading, according to surveys of Consumer Director Joanne Husu. However, consumers remain frustrated at the persistence of high prices and weakening incomes. This month, current personal finances and buying conditions for durables both plunged more than 10%, whereas expectations for the future improved modestly. So that's kind of the sentiment behind what we're seeing with consumers of large stock holdings lost the gains seen at the preliminary readings. But gold prices continue to trade near session highs following the release of the data at 10 a.m. And then we saw the prices fall and then creep back up again later in the day because of how the data are being digested. The components of the October index showed improvement in price pressures with both short-term and longer-term inflation expectations receding. A year-ahead inflation expectations inched down from 4.6% last month to 4.5% this month. This marks 3 consecutive months of declines, but short-term run inflation expectations still remain above 3.3% seen in January. Long-term run inflation expectations softened from 3.9% last month to 3.4% in November. These expectations are now modestly above 3.2%. So despite these improvements in the future trajectory of inflation, consumers continue to report that the personal finances now are weighed down by the present state of high prices, according to Ernest Hoffman at Kidco. But if with inflation pulling back, that's going to change the calculus over at the Fed. We're going to get into that in a moment. Here's another piece by Neil Christensen from Kitco as well. The gold market is slightly holding solid support above $4,000 an ounce as healthy economic activity in both the manufacturing and service sectors could impact gold's bullish momentum and safe haven allure. The S&P Global reported on Friday that its Flash Purchasing Managers Index, Composite Output Index, increased to 54.8%, or 54.8, rising to its highest level in 4 months. The increase was driven by solid momentum in the service sector. And as we reported on the other article here, the manufacturing PMI data fell slightly to 51.9, down from October's reading of 52.5. The data were in line with expectations, despite the drop in the sector remains in expansion territory. So how are all of these information being digested and consumed by sentiment going forward? Well, likely it's meaning good for the economy overall, and that's how they're digesting it. And this is why, in some cases, we're seeing movements in the Fed sentiment of what's going to be happening at the rate for the rate cut meeting for the December the 10th meeting. Now there's a 69.5% chance of a rate cut. That's a 4/4 point cut, and that has turned the page for gold and silver. And silver especially is coming back here to now trading just below $50 an ounce as I'm looking at the markets again here. Yesterday it was 39.1. Now it's 69.5. So it's amazing how quickly things can turn around in late trading to prevent a clobbering of silver's price to just being down solidly. And even if we stop at this level and the markets close with silver trading in the high 49s, that is pretty good. And I would say it would be nice if we could have traded above $50 an ounce, but nonetheless, we'll take it. If it's a 9 cents shy of that at the close, that'll be all right. But we've seen a fight for it here as we getting closer to the end of the trading session here today and having these prices hover over the weekend. But that's the ask price. Most of the technical analysis, I believe, is on the bid price, and it's 12 cents below that right now. So we'll see. Now, although the data continues to point to a resilient economy, the also highlighted that some concerns growing in the market. So it's a mixed bag overall, I think, as we continue to monitor the situation. And I think that is why some of the fluctuations with the wild ride with silver prices are happening today. Silver reacting more dramatically than gold. Gold, honestly, has not moved a whole lot here in late trading, although obviously it did go down to as low as $4,024. Manufacturers reported a worrying combination of slower new orders growth and a record rise in finished goods stock. The accumulation of unsold inventory hints at slower factory production expansion in the coming months, unless demand revives, which could in turn feed through the lower growth in many service industries. Furthermore, although jobs continue to be created in November, the rate of hiring continues to be constrained by worries over cost, in turn linked to tariffs. Both input costs and selling prices rose to increase rates in November, which will be of concern if to the inflation hawks. And remember, Trump has announced pulling back some inflation, or pulling back in some of the tariffs for food stuff. So that could have an impact, a positive impact. Of course, it also gives credence to the argument that tariffs indeed are taxes, and they are. There's no question about it. There's no debate about it. But the cost sharing of those taxes are weighed on the host countries and mostly the consumer here in the United States. So that is one impact that I think will be positive with those tariffs being removed. The other thing that's not talked about in the pieces that I mentioned here is the 28-point plan that is being offered to resolve the war in Ukraine. It is definitely more pro-Russia in its outlook, and I don't know as to whether or not the Ukrainians will accept it. We'll find out soon enough. There is concern, obviously, but nonetheless, we'll see how that plays out in the situation to be able to negotiate a peace there. And I think that is, in turn, as well as weighing on the markets. But I think the biggest factor here, especially considering that we're seeing the dollar continue to retain strength here, it's up. It's up a bit today, slightly. It's a 0.01 to 100.16 right now. But gold, silver, indeed are reacting, and they're down. But the Fed Watch tool is telling us something pretty dramatic here, with a 69.5% chance of another rate cut in December. So at least right now, it looks like that's going to be the case, as all these data have been digested today, and we'll see what happens through next week. But it's pretty amazing. In fact, they've just ticked up again for the Fed Watch tool here. So fascinating indeed. Now, what did I get at the bank? Well, I went to my local bank, and I saw a couple of shiny coins in there. It's like, can I look through that? And they said, sure. And I pulled out this amazing golden dollar. That's right, a proof golden dollar. You do not see these at the bank too often, although I must admit that I've seen them there before in banks, but not very often at all, but not one in this condition. I don't see any fingerprints on this side at all, nor on this side. None at all, even though it was sitting there in the tray. Pretty amazing. Now, this is not gold. It's golden manganese brass, but to get a Sacagawea gold dollar here, especially from an unusual year, 2004, out of a proof set, put into general circulation, sent to the bank, is pretty unusual. Now, it's not for stackers, but I thought it was kind of intriguing. Thought you might like that. But there you have it. So there's your market report for today on this Friday. Amazing, fascinating indeed. Silver's price falling a little bit more here, in late trading. Likely we're not going to see $50. We're not going to see it close above that, which I'd really hope we could see it close by $50 by Friday. That's all right. Silver's still doing pretty good in my view. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below about the markets. If you enjoy what I do here, I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. So that being said, I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and have diamond fists.